Today we're going to look at Outlook. I'm working on the assumption that everybody's fairly familiar with Outlook. I'm not going to show you things like how to send an email, how to attach a file, because, like I said, I'm assuming that you already know that. However, if I'm assuming too much, just let me know. I'll show you how to attach a file or send an email. First of all, what I'm going to do is just run through some things that I find really useful from an efficiency point of view. I'll go to resort to putting the glasses on. Now, there's a few things in there that can make life easier. But one of the things that I find really handy is follow-up flags. A lot of people use them anyway. A lot of people never heard of them. Now, depending on how you use your Outlook and your email, this can be really handy. A lot of people these days have their work email on their phone. You get a message, you deal with it straight away, and that's it, done and dusted, and you know about every message that's come in. However, there are still a lot of people who can quite happily separate work from the real world. It's getting harder and harder, but it means that they don't see their work emails until they arrive in the office in the morning, and then there might be dozens to deal with. And then at the end of the day, they shut the computer down, or preferably restart it, and don't see the work emails again until the next day. Now, if you're in that situation, you spark your PC up and you've got 10 new messages or 100 new messages, well, not 100, maybe 20 new messages. And what can happen, you can open up the first thing that you see, and all these messages, the mailbox I'm working with today is the JJ Systems spam account, spam@JJ Systems. So there'll be nothing important in here other than salesmen that are upset because that's the email address they've been given. But what can happen is people open up the message and go like, oh yeah, that's no rubbish, don't do that, delete. And they look at the next one. Oh, it's not set to open automatically. But they'll open up the next one and think, actually, I need to do that. And then they go to the next one. And then you go through all these messages and kind of get an idea of what you want to do. You get back to your main screen, only to realize that you can't remember which ones are important and which ones you're just keeping. And this is what follow-up flags are for. I'm just going to mute some more microphones because there's a little bit of feedback going on. That's better. Okay, so instead, what you can do is open up an email, look at it and say, okay, well, I need to deal with that at some point. Maybe not until the end of the week, but I need to deal with it. And then you can just hit follow-up flag. And then what that'll do is it'll put a little flag on it. And you can say, I need to follow it up today, or maybe I'll do it next week. But it just helps you prioritize the messages. In addition to just adding a flag to say, deal with it, you can add a reminder. So if you think, well, I've got to phone this guy by tomorrow, I've got to get these answers or figures across or any of those sorts of things. And so by adding a reminder, you would actually get a pop-up on a certain day at a certain time, and then the messages are chasing you. But the great thing is then you can click through your inbox and all your unread messages and assign tags to the important ones and delete the unimportant ones. And then at the end of going through the messages, what you'll have is a whole bunch of messages, some of which they've got flags next to. And then you'll know by hovering over it which ones are important and which ones need doing. And then when you've dealt with it, you can either delete it or you can just click the flag again and it will mark it as dealt with. You can just go through the list and think like, oh yeah, that needs dealing with, and then just click the flag then and go through, click a flag. And again, it means that you can get these really old messages. You can get a bit of a sort of priority going with your messages. Now, like I say, people that receive the messages on their phone and see them all the time, of course, this isn't quite so useful, but it can be handy if you walk into a situation where you've got loads of unread messages. The thing I quite often do is I'll get a new message in, read it, find out the answers to all the questions, deal with that message, get it all done, send the message, and then open my next message, which will be from the same person, and they say, yeah, don't worry about the last thing, I've got the figures anyway. And it's just a classic example of inefficiency, and so that's the importance of browsing through your messages first and dealing with them afterwards. Okay, so the next thing then, search folders. I don't know if anyone uses search folders, but these are really handy. If I click on search folders, there might be a few presets in there. No, there's one preset, unread mail. So not much in the way at all. But what this will do is it kind of works like a sort of a mask, for want of a better expression, where it doesn't move anything, it doesn't find anything to a certain degree. What it does is it just shows things that are in your inbox that meet a criteria. So, for example, if I was now thinking, right, I'm just going to crack on with dealing with all the messages that I flagged to deal with, I can go to search folders, and if I do a right mouse click on there and click on new search folder, there's loads of options, but what I'm going to do here is say ones that are mailed, well, mail that is flagged for follow-up. And if I say OK to that, I've got a new search folder there now, and if I click on it, it will show all the ones that have been marked for follow-up eventually. Yeah, or it should do. Why is that not working? Let me get back to my inbox. I'm sure I'll mark some for follow-up. This is because they're really old, but I'll mark a new one and that one as well. So there's a couple of messages there that are marked for follow-up. And if I go to follow-up, now it's only showing those messages. And so it's not moving anything. And if I delete that message, it deletes it from the inbox. But the idea is that it just gives me the it gives me all the ones that meet that criteria. Okay, it narrows it all down. Equally, what you can do is you can go to search folders and you can say, right, okay, I just want to get messages from a certain sender. So if I go back to my inbox, let's choose a sender. Click here for more. I need to probably tell this to download all the messages, otherwise it won't work. But that's preparation for you. Okay, well here's one from there's a quarantine report which will be sent by us. I think I just got to move the box at the top, which has got everyone in it. Right. I know it's an old quarantine message. Right. Let's see if I can bring up that email address. Oh, that's going to now open an email. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, let's try that again. All right. Copy email. So that email address, I want all the messages that have been sent by that sender down here in a search folder. So if I go to search folders, right mouse click, say new search folder, then I can look at the list and say mail from people. And if I say mail from specific people, in here, if it's someone that's in my my contacts, I can click on choose, go through my contacts and find that contact. If it's someone that probably isn't, or if I just want to save time, I can just paste into there. Paste. Now I can click on choose first and then paste into the bottom there the sender that isn't in my contacts. So now if I say OK, it's saying anything that's from and then this quarantine email thing. And if I click on OK, in theory it should list them all in the search folders, but because I've not downloaded all the messages, it might not. No. This is just as a nice interesting side issue. If you're in a situation where you go to Outlook and it keeps displaying this annoying message at the bottom saying you've got stuff on the server but it's not on your PC, you can adjust that and you can go to File, Account Settings, something about Sync, that's the one I want, Sync, and let's just have all my messages and then done. And now when I go back to my inbox, it will eventually list all my messages and then this will all work properly in theory. If I go to here, I should now have messages in there. No, never mind. Anyway, you can take my word for that one. So that's how search folders work. And like I say, if I had something in there that could be found, let's choose that one. That's a different quarantine. That's no reply at. Right, let's double click on that. Right mouse click to copy the email address. And so I could go right mouse click, new search folder, mail from specific people, choose, and then in here if I just paste and say okay. Now it just shows all the messages from that sender. So that's search folders. And like I say, it's quite a good way of just narrowing down a long list and making it into a shorter list. And for some reason it's not downloaded everything. Oh yeah, I can cancel those, that's fine. Right. Okay, what else have we got? Rules. Now, you can do some big and clever things with rules, which are a great way of making your inbox more efficient. Before I do this, has anyone got any questions about anything? Because this might go on a bit. Okay, everyone's muted, so I can't hear them. There we go. You got to mute your microphones. Singing in the background, I'm going to hear it now.
Yeah.
There we go. Any questions about anything?
Yesterday, can you hear me?
That's right.
Just,
So what happened now is
let me just wait for the sound to settle down. Okay, right.
Yesterday, I asked about the Calibri typeface, didn't I, on Word? Right. That works on Word, but when I went on to Outlook to do the same, it's the same process, but it doesn't save it.
Oh, okay.
So all I'm going to do, let me just start.
I think.
I had all the same types the same with the.
Okay, now, so you get a little blue icon, TeamViewer, on your desktop, right?
Right.
Yeah, can you see that blue icon on your desktop?
Let me.
This is the square.
Hang on.
I need to turn some microphone.
This is the license agreement thing that's come up here with TeamViewer end user license agreement.
Right.
I'll just accept it.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at that, and I'll come back to it before the end of the session, and I'll have to search around, or I'll send you an email if I can't find it quickly enough. There was another thing I was going to say about the tick shortcut. I'll come back to that at the end as well. But does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to see in Outlook before I go on?
No.
No, I'm waving or doing a text message.
No.
Oh, Michelle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So you were just going through the search mechanism for Outlook. I've never actually done it from the left-hand bar where all the folders sit. There's a little bar that sits under the ribbon above your inbox. If I wanted to search for any emails, I just put in some details into the top line, see what I'm talking about. So you've got the ribbon and the toolbar across the top, and then there's a little tiny bar that sits above all of your emails.
Yes.
And I've actually just put in, say for example, I wanted to find emails from Ernie. I've just put Ernie's name in there, and then it's found Ernie.
Yes.
I just think that might be an easier way for people to look for certain things rather than going to the left-hand side.
It's a good way of just finding stuff, but the idea of the search folders is a way of kind of grouping them together. And so it's not for everyone, but it works quite well if you just want to be able to see something, because it's, for example, it's an ongoing project with Blogs and Co, and they're your number one important task to deal with every day. The idea is, rather than going in and having to type in the search menu at the top Blogs and Co and search for them, instead you can go to your search folders and the Blogs and Co one will be right there, and you just click on it, and then it will list all those emails. And so it's kind of a way of setting a search that's always available. But equally, all it does is it just shows you those messages without showing you all the other in the inbox. So.
Brilliant, because you showed me another method again. I was doing it in a different way, but you showed me another way of means to do it, which is absolutely great.
Hang on a second, I'm just going to try and do something to the sound because it's all a bit jumbled. I think I've got... right, okay, say that again.
I was just saying thank you, because what you've done is you've shown me another method and another way of means of searching, which is great.
Yes. Good. Okay. Yeah. That's right. Was it the tick as well we was going to go through yesterday that I was going to show you?
Exactly. I asked you whether there was basically a way to click tick.
Yes. Remind me at the end when everyone else has had enough. And I'll show you that.
Thank you.
I'm just going to go through the rules now, because I work in a very similar way to search folders. The idea of rules is if you need to be alerted for certain message types. Let me just, that's better. Just getting the sound working. Right, everyone's microphone's off. You have to wave if you want to get hold of me. So the rules just basically work really well for priority messages. And again, you can use them in a similar way to the search folders. So you might have emails that you want to put into a separate folder, and you might not even care whether you read them or not. You just want them to go to a certain folder, so they're grouped together, and you want them to be taken out of the inbox. Or you might have emails that you want forwarded to a different email address, either a colleague or to maybe a personal account or something. And so you can create rules to do all kinds of things. You can create rules to make the computer play a different sound when the message comes in. The easiest way of doing it is to pick a message. Let's choose this one from a salesman here, and then go over to rules, which is just hidden away at the top here. Right, to the rules button. Yay, it's frozen. And then say create rule. And because I've got this chap here, the salesman I think he is, his email selected, it's instantly assumed that I want to create a rule regarding his email, which is good because that saves me a bit of effort. There's a bunch of obvious, straightforward things that I might like to do here. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click on Advanced Options. And then here I can create a more sophisticated rule. And so the first step is, who do you want to check for messages from? I'm going to say, yep, from this chap, I want to do a particular thing to the messages. So that's the first step. If I wanted to include loads of different names, I could just click down here and change the name or add the name that I wanted. Then I can go to next, and it says, well, what do you want to do to this? And here I could tick this and say move it to a specified folder. And so if I had a bunch of stuff down the left-hand side, as a lot of people do, I could sort of move it to the blogs project folder, or whatever folder it is I'm looking for. And I'd do that by clicking on specified and choosing the folder from the list. Or what I could do is I could just move it to deleted items. Not that I'm suggesting there's anything wrong with receiving emails from salesmen, but anyway, so I can click that. Or I could say that I want to forward a copy of it to a certain person, or forward a copy of it to a certain email address. And then all I do is say forward to, click on people, and then from my list of contacts I can choose a person to send it to, or I can just type the address directly in there. I'm not going to do that, but there's a whole bunch of things here which are pretty straightforward. I mean, I can say permanently delete it. That's better than saying move to the bin, but it's warning me that that's not a good idea unless I'm really sure. So that's deciding what I want to do with the email. Then if I click on next, it gives me options for some exemptions where I can say, don't do it if it's flagged as urgent, don't do it if it's marked as sensitive or something, or some other reason. Once I've decided what I'm going to do with which ones I'm going to exclude, then I can click on next, and then I can give it a meaningful name, like and then at the end of this you get two options. One is you can just switch the rule on, which is great because future messages will get called by it, and the other is you can run it on existing messages. So sometimes if you just want to extract a load of things from a large inbox, you can use this system as a way of getting those things out of your inbox and into separate folders. And now if I click on finish, I should get at least one message going into my deleted items, which there you go, it's working through it. And so now it'll be in there, except it's not downloaded it, but if it had done, it would have been. Oh no, there it is. I was gradually building up the list. Anyway, so that's rules, and you find them on the rules tab. You click on there, and you can either create a new rule, or you can go to manage rules and alerts. And in here, we can see all the rules that we've got. And if you think, well, I don't necessarily want that running all the time, I can untick it. And if I don't want to use it ever again, I can just click on delete to get rid of it. So that is rules and alerts. Good. Now, does anybody have any questions about anything? Anyone want to know about how to use out of office? That's one that a lot of people tend to use. I can't tell because I've muted all the microphones. You see if anyone's waving? No? Right. Okay. Let's make that box bigger. Okay, right. Good. In that case then, what I'll do is I'll skip out of office because it's a bit dull, and I'll show you a couple of other things that you might find useful. Right. There we go. I've got the got your camera feeds all on the screen at the same time now. Right, okay. One thing that's quite useful is copying emails to calendar, because sometimes you might get a message and you think, you know, this is something that needs to be dealt with, or it's something that relates to Friday's meeting, and you just want to take all the information out of that email and put it into an appointment. So rather than opening up the message and then reading through it and copying all the information, that's not an example of one that I'd be using at all, that's not the point. What you can do is you can just click on the email and drag it, and you can just drop it onto calendar. What it'll do then is it will leave the email in the inbox, but it will create a calendar appointment with all the details from that email. It creates it as a default appointment for the time that you've created it, so, but then of course you can just change it and say, well, I need that for next week at 8:30, and then you hit save and close, and now that email is still there, but the details of it are in the calendar. And if I go to calendar, then I can see next week there's a meeting about that email. And so that sort of thing can save you seconds eventually. If you use Task Manager, exactly the same thing in there. You can take an email and say, yeah, I need to deal with this particular task. I can drag that, drop that into my to-do list there. And then if I click on the start date, end date, and all the priority settings, I can turn that into a perfectly sensible things to do, or thing to do in my things to do list. And if I hit save and close, that's added it to that. So it's kind of a useful thing. Now, one of the things that is really handy is draft emails, which I'll go through in a second. If you're in a situation where you're typing up a message and you're putting loads of info in there, blah, 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 and you get to the end of the message, you think, I've not even got this person's email address, or you get to the end of it and you think, I need to double check these figures. Then of course what you can do is you can just save it in drafts, and you do that by either just closing the message and saying yes to save it in drafts, or you can press the save button first just to be sure, and then close the message. In that case it won't ask. But let's see, I'll put a sample message. And because I can save it or I can just close it. Either way, it's now saved it into drafts. And so if I go to drafts, that message is sitting there ready and waiting to be completed and then sent. So nothing particularly exciting there. But where it comes into its own is if you've got a standard message. Maybe there's one you send out if you're going to be out and about the next day and you're going to be away from your messages, or you don't want to be disturbed. And maybe you want to send it to specific people rather than just having an out of office. Or maybe there's a message you send out whenever a certain deal is available or a certain pricing or something. And rather than sending that message and sending it to loads of people in one big mailing list, what you can do is you can just create a message, save it in drafts, and then click to highlight the message and then copy and paste it. So if I do Control-C and Control-V, that's now pasted it. And I can paste 10 of those. And now any one of those messages, I can just open up, I can change the details, and I can send it. And it's just sent an individual email. So it's quite a handy thing if you kind of get to a point where you want to tell people that you're going on holiday. You don't want to tell everybody, but you just want to tell a few key people, and you don't want to keep rewriting the message. Or if there's a standard message you send out on a regular basis that you just need to change a few sentences in it, then all you do is you create a standard message by doing a new email and creating it in the normal way. And then save it to draft by closing it and saying, yes, save my standard message. And then there that is, and I can just do Control-C to copy it, and Control-V to paste lots of copies, because then when I've sent this one, and I'll send this to me, because I think my email address is in there, but it's not. However, that's a really bad thing to type if it's going to go on YouTube. Anyway, I click on send. That standard message is gone, but I've still got another 4 that I could send. So that's draft messages, which can be really useful. There's some other really handy things. Has anyone got anything that they can think about now that they might like covered, or am I okay to carry on? Just give it a thumbs up, carry on. Yeah, good, right, okay. It's definitely better with the microphone muted, but I can't hear anyone, so it's not ideal from that point of view. There's a couple of tools that you can use for efficiency. One is, if you've got a situation where you send a message and you think, well, I'm sending this to whoever, I don't know, let's say you're sending it to me. You're sending it to someone that waffles on a lot, yeah, me. And the problem is, let's make this small enough to see, you know that if you ask a simple yes-no question, you're just going to get a life story for an answer. But we want to know is yes or no. Rather than actually asking the question, you can use voting buttons. Voting buttons are really cute. As long as everybody knows about them and they're happy to just press the voting button, it means that person will get the message and then they can just say yes to it. And they haven't got to tell you why. And that works a treat. Now, voting buttons can be found on the Options tab of the ribbon. And then, oh, there we are, nice big button. You click on voting buttons and you get a choice of some standard ones. Now, let's say yes or no. And now, when I send that message, I just send it in the usual way. Obviously, I can put a lengthy description in there. Let's put a lengthy description in there. T. And then if I send that, what will happen now is the recipient will get that message and it will have a little voting button on it, which you can't see in the sent items. That's a shame. I wonder if I can send one to myself. Let's send it to spam at jjsystems.co.uk. So if I go to options, voting buttons, yes or no, and message send, files, no, send. It's that big button there, yeah. Send. Then, yeah, here we go. If I open it up, you'll see there's a little thing that says vote by clicking vote in the response group above. Oh, that's rubbish. There's no respond group. Oh, no, there it is. That's respond groups up there. So I'm going to vote and say yes. And then send my response. And then I'll get another email back now saying, yes, I would like a cup of tea. Any second. Go on. Oh, no, there it is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it definitely works better when you've got more than one person involved in the conversation. However, as voting buttons, like I say, it's quite useful. You can put more detailed choices in there. So if I create a new one and go to options and voting buttons, I need to make this bigger. I can't see all the options. I'm going to custom, and then in here I can just type in all the options, separating them with a semicolon, and then they'll come up as the voting choices. It appears differently depending which version you're using, which is why I was a bit surprised a minute ago, because some versions, earlier versions, it has the option at the top of the message, and really early ones, it's got great big buttons in the middle of the message. But what they've done is kind of optimized it to make it look more trendy, I suppose. So that's voting buttons. There's a whole bunch of other really cute things in here as well, and they can be accessed by going to these options here in the options tab. One of them is delayed delivery. It's exactly the same screen comes up, but this is really handy if you kind of think, well, I want to send this message, but I'm not sure whether this information is going to be definitely correct. I won't know till midday. So I kind of want to get this project done, but if things change at midday, then I don't want to send the message. So what you could do is you can say, okay, do not deliver before. Then you can put a date in there and a time. If I say 5 o'clock, that's a good one. I'm not suggesting that people like sending messages at 5 o'clock, but it does like to default to 5 o'clock for those people that think, I'll just send this and then I'll run out of the office and I won't have to deal with the reply. But you put in there that you do not deliver before, hit close, then you send the message. Let's send this again to me. Send. I'll just call it delay. And now what that'll do is it'll sit in my outbox. And there it is, happily sitting in my outbox, waiting for 5 o'clock. And then provided I leave my computer open, this is one of the things, the computer's got to be open, at 5 o'clock it will send the message. If I shut my computer down, it will warn me, or if I shut Outlook down, it will warn me that there's things sitting in my outbox and they won't get sent. And then it won't get sent at 5 o'clock. But if I leave it open, it will send that at 5. If, however, somebody phones me up at midday and says, no, that information is a load of rubbish, or you can't attend that meeting, or blah, 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 then I can just go to my outbox, click on it, delete it, and then it won't get sent at all. I've got 2 new messages. I was still talking about tea. Anyway, okay. So that's some of the voting buttons and expiry, that's some of the option button things. I've got other things in there. Expiry. This is a really handy one. Let's do another new message. On the option tab, we can do expiry, which I don't have a button for. That's a shame. Anyway, if I click on any of these flyouts, pretty much any of these flyouts bring up the same dialog box. And here you can say expires after, and you can set a time that that message is no longer valid from. So really important things for in big offices are messages like there's cake in the kitchen, and it's no good sending it and then somebody turning up the next day finding it. First thing they find out about is there's cake in the kitchen, only to get there and realise it's gone. Breaks their heart. But if you say this expires after 3 o'clock, it massively reduces the risk of people eating stale cake. Or you could use it for serious things, like if you send a message where you'll be available to do something, but if they don't tell you by 3 o'clock or by Wednesday, then there's no chance that you'll be able to get there in time. So literally you just tick the box, set a date, set a time, click on close, and then send it the usual way. Then you've got a message that expires. Now, that's expiry and delay. Done the voting buttons. Resending messages, that's really handy. Let me just get to that. No, don't save changes. If you sent a message and you've not heard anything back, and you think, well, I could really do with getting a reply to that question. It's a bit of a faff opening it up and copying it and pasting it and sending it again, or even forwarding it to the person again. It always looks a bit messy. What you can do is you can right click on the message, and then you can go to the option that isn't there on the menu. I can't see it. I'm just going to open it up instead. You can open up a sent message, go to actions, or is it under, where is actions? I've just got to move some stuff around on the screen. Right, reply forward, actions, there it is. Right, and go to actions, and you can click on resend the message. So it's really easy to find, but open up the message, click on actions, go to resend message, and it'll basically just, you'll be shocked to hear this, it'll resend the message. So you can put in something subtle like, are you ever going to reply to me? And then click on send, and you get to send the message again. So it's quite a good way of saving you having to retype things. So like I say, you find that easily by opening up a message in your sent items, going to actions and going to resend. I'm sure it's somewhere on the right mouse click, but I just didn't see it, so I'm not going to search for it anymore. But one of the other things that's in there is potentially a useful feature, which is recall this message. I would say on the number of times that I've used this has probably worked 1 in 10 times. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the recipient setup. It depends whether they get the message as soon as you sent it, or whether they will only get it in the morning. And I think it depends on luck as well. But the idea of this is you send a message to somebody and you think, no, that was a load of rubbish. I didn't mean that. I've put the wrong details in there, or the wrong dates in there, or I've just realised I shouldn't use Outlook after drinking. But if you're in that situation, then what you can do is open up the sent message, go to recall, then you click on that, and then it brings up a little dialog box saying, do you want to delete all unread copies? And you say, yes, just do it. You can say, I want to replace them with a new message, but if you just say delete it, if you keep this one clicked, it tells you whether you're in trouble or not. I mean, it tells you whether or not they actually got to see the message. And if you say OK, it's now saying it tried to recall the message, but actually that might work, oddly enough, because I've not got any of my email systems on, so that might be successful. But I won't find out until I open my email, then it will tell me that it's either recalled it or not recalled it. So like I say, to do those things, you just go to sent items, open up the message, and then on the actions tab, which is right there, you click on recall, or you can say resend. But that's that. But don't count on it, because it doesn't always work. If somebody's already got the message, or if their server's already got the message, then often that's no fun at all. There's lots of things you can do in the calendar and in the task list and in other places. But if I carry on, I'll go on all day. So what I'm going to do is open up the microphones, and then if you've got any questions, now would be an excellent time to ask. So just going to work through them one at a time. We see who's got the worst feet. No feedback. Brilliant. That's cool. Often they're just sitting really still. Is there any questions about anything?
Glyn, just one. Is there a way of setting up a mail shop within app? Do we need to have MailChimp or Zoho or something like that?
There's a brilliant way of doing that. The easiest way to achieve it is to use Microsoft Outlook and Word and Excel. And so presumably you'll have all three. It takes a bit of time, but it's probably worth me covering. So if you pick a day next week, Brian, and tell me which day you're available, I'll definitely cover it.
Okay, perfect.
You can either email me or just tell me whenever. I'll give a session to doing that in Office, because it's a really useful thing. Even if you're just telling everybody about a new project, a new service, you can do it in a nice personal way.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of free most of next week, so whatever. Let me know.
Tuesday is probably a good day for that one, I reckon.
Tuesday. Okay.
It feels like a sort of Tuesday thing. So I'll make it now in a highly technical way. Tuesday, mail merge. There we go.
All right, thanks.
So, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, yesterday I did some Word, and I showed how to insert certain characters. There was something I just need to follow up on that, because I didn't really. I did show it yesterday, but I'm going to show a better way of doing it. So I'm just going to cover that now. And if anybody thinks of any other questions about anything, it can be Word, look at anything. I'm happy to go through that afterwards. So we talked about inserting a symbol into a document, and I said you can go to insert symbol, and you can either choose a recently used symbol, or there are more symbols where you can choose one. Which one is that? Now, I just realised that the conference stuff is probably just showing you Outlook still, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah. Let me go change the sharing settings. This could go horribly wrong. Right. Share content. Right, let's change it from Outlook to Word. Share. I'm sharing 2 windows. I'm going to stop sharing Outlook. Right, share content. Stop sharing Outlook. Okay. Right, can everybody see Word? Yeah? Good. Word. If you insert the tick in there, the symbol, and because I was teaching yesterday doing it on the list, or I could go to symbol, click on the drop down, more symbols, and choose my symbol, which was tick, which is somewhere on this list. Somewhere, there it is. Now, what you can do to speed things up is you can assign a key to it. The reason that I didn't cover this yesterday was because assigning keys in Office products is a nightmare. It's not difficult to do, it's really easy. What's difficult is that there are not many shortcut keys available in Office anymore. So what happens is you go to assign a key and then all the shortcuts that you want are already used for something else. However, what I did do yesterday, I made the effort of going through all the shortcut keys until I found one that sounded good. And I thought, Alt-T will do. So if I click on shortcut key now, having selected the symbol that I want, I click on shortcut key. And then in here, there's a lot of details about it, but all I need to do is shortcut. And I'm going to use Alt and T. Pretty much all the control options have gone. A lot of the obvious Alt ones are gone as well, but Alt-T I thought that would do for tick. So now if I say assign, and then say close, and then close this window. Next time I want a tick and I'm in Word, I just do it, and I get a tick. So there you go. Yesterday's question answered, and it only took 24 hours. Good.
Glyn, can you do the same for the Euro sign?
The Euro symbol is on all your keyboards. And people say to me, they argue with me about this, and I say, no, it's there. It's on the number 4 key, and you hold down the Alt graphic, which is to the right of the spacebar. It gives you the Euro symbol. And it's a new feature. It's only been there for 22 years. And so it was introduced in 1990 Millennium Compliance, which is why I know that it's on every keyboard. Yeah.
I'm a slow learner.
And that's in every application. It goes to show how in the UK we appreciate the euro, that no one realises it's there. But anyway, good. Okay. Anything else you think of? No.
No.
All right. In that case, what I'll do is I'll leave you in peace for the rest of the day. I'm going to get back to learning about how to sort out a problem in Outlook. And on Monday, I'll do some Excel stuff again, I think, if you'd care to join me. I might do something a bit technical on Monday, just to be interesting, maybe pivot tables or something. But if anyone's got any requests, just email them through. So on Monday, I'll do some Excel. And on Tuesday, I'm going to do this mail merge in Word, where we take an Excel mailing list and turn it into an email shot in Outlook, which is, it's not that complicated. It's really easy to do once you've done it the first time. Let's put it that way. So that'll be it for today. Thank you for coming along, and hopefully I shall see you soon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.